Today I'm having a guest with Yoad Nevo, award-winning, era-defining producer here in London, made famous not only by the hit records he's worked on, but also by the educational content he delineated across YouTube for Waves and other providers. So I'm excited to be here speaking to Yoad.
Good to have you here. Yeah, I've been very busy with Dolby Atmos mixing, but also product development. I've been doing that for many years. I started my way in surround sound in the early 2000s when we developed the Waves surround bundle. I have a patent on my name for upmixing, so upmixing stereo content to surround to 5.1. So I'm very much aware of the technology and how it's found its way into mainstream music, which is what we're starting to see now. The setup I have here is 714, 7 satellite speakers, a sub, and 4 top speakers.
I don't understand how that gets mixed down into stereo. Ultimately, my Apple AirPods are still, if I'm not mistaken, 2 speaker cones, putting 2 sound sources, 1 into each ear. How do you get this spatial thing down to that?
Okay, so if you think of it, you have 2 holes here. You don't have 8.
That's right.
You have 2 holes, which means that all the information you get, all the spatial information and cues that you get from your surrounding has to be implemented through 2 holes here, and then your brain interprets this information and lets you kind of find your way and identify sound sources from different places on the X, Y, and Z planes.
Okay.
So the way it works is you have your skull, you have the distance between your 2 ears, you have the pinna, which is the shape of your ear lobe, basically. And those factors make your brain analyze sounds and pinpoint the direction to a certain source in any dimension. So all these things together allow us to emulate the way our brains interpret surround or immersive sound.
Okay, so there's been a lot of long and well-informed and complex development going on.
At the moment, for instance, the Apple algorithm on Apple Music prioritizes Dolby Atmos mixes by 10%. So if you get your music mixed in Dolby Atmos, the algorithm pushes you up by a certain amount. Amazon and Netflix only accept music for the TV series or films in Dolby Atmos. So they don't accept stereo.
They don't accept the 2.0 mix anymore?
No.
Wow.
So this is happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And Apple, Netflix, Amazon, the big players of our time, are putting their foot on the accelerator to push Dolby into the mainstream.
The way we mix in stereo is that we have most of the important information, certainly the beat and the vocal, dead center. So you get a phantom image from the 2 speakers, which is dead center. And then you have the immersive elements, which gives the depth of field and the width.
Yeah. Okay, so you get left, right, front, back with stereo.
And the same applies to Dolby Atmos. The way we mix in Dolby Atmos is not that we're going to put 1 drum here and 1 drum there and the piano here. We still rely on the front of like a stage image where the important information is coming from the left and right speakers. We also use the center speaker for vocal because that gives us added headroom. The back speakers are a little bit more problematic because we're not used to be hearing important information from the back. And if we do, then we turn around. And this is the big no-no for surround mixing.
You're putting any important information behind you.
You don't want people to do this.
Yeah.
You want people to have an immersive experience. You want everything to engulf them with sound in a natural way. So that applies to proper surround or immersive mixing. And the interesting thing is that we are going to see productions made in immersive sound. And this is something that I've been working on for a few years now. And a lot of my productions these days start in Dolby Atmos.
Yes.
I think I showed you my 6-speaker guitar. So each string coming out of a different speaker. And when you play the guitar, it's a very immersive experience, which we talked about headroom. So rather than recording a guitar and then doubling it to have a left-right kind of wide image, I can play one guitar and each string is coming from a different speaker, and I get this big immersive sound with just one instrument.
Yeah.
So there are many elements that you can treat them in a different way when you produce in surround from the beginning. And this is different from taking back catalog or productions that were made in stereo and upmixing them in surround. I come from the school of traditional spatial audio, and this is my foundation, and I think it's very important to have that. So you start from that. We have to understand the theory. We don't have to. We can do whatever. We can be creative and do whatever. But if we want to recreate the immersive experience we experience by nature, by just walking down the street and hearing, I don't know, a plane from there, a bus from there, someone talking to us from there. If we want to recreate that, so it's easier for our brain to interpret that sound. And that's what we want, because we want it to be easy, we want to enjoy the music, rather than, if you stop and think, hey, what happened here?
Yeah.
Then you spoil the experience in a way.
So like a lot of good mixing is actually about removing obstacles from the listener's attention. Mixing is all about getting technical considerations out of the way so that the idea can be fully enjoyed. Are we seeing that, or do you think we're going to see that in Dolby, where there's going to be a sort of a breakthrough moment where we start using the format more creatively? Or are we already doing that?
The professionals, who are people with experience in 5.1, 7.1, it's not a completely new format like stereo has been when it came out. So we have experience in mixing for film. We have experience in mixing, especially live shows. I used to do so many live DVDs.
You do like the Eagles or something like that on,
you know, because it was a format that still had some merit.
Mm-hmm.
So we know how to do that. If you're a professional and if you know what you're doing, and the same applies to stereo mixing or any kind of mixing, if you know what you're doing, then you would know how to adapt to this format and do it properly.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware that there's a controversial trend going on of people separating the stems from stereo mixes using AI tools they find online and then putting those into Dolby mixes. You know, what do you think about this behavior of upmixing inappropriately?
If you split a song, a stereo mix, to its stems, however many they are, and then you put them back together, you will get the identical file.
Oh.
However, if you listen to each one of them, you'll have the artifacts. Mm-hmm. But the artifacts disappear when you re-sum all the different elements.
Okay, but so if you strip the stereo mix into stems and you resum them in stereo, you'll get the original file. If you resum them in Dolby, you will hear those artifacts. That can
because you highlight each one individually alongside its artifacts, and in order to get a proper mix, you would have to add some reverbs, delays, kind of other stereo enhancers and surround enhancers. And then when you sum it back, it will be nothing like the original.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm kind of old school. I like 2.0 because we're so used to it and I know what I'm doing in it. But with Dolby, it's like the ceiling just got slightly higher. So is there any kind of music you think has been hampered by 2.0 that you think is going to benefit from this new expansion in headroom? The answer could be all music, but certainly I have a feeling that classical is going to benefit from this. Dynamic range music.
Yes, but you can argue that metal could benefit from that.
Yeah.
Because you try to, in metal, the drums are so clicky and so punchy. Why can't the bass drum be fat like in hip hop? In theory, it's because of the lack of headroom. You have to cram everything into these two speakers.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that the bass drum. Okay, so what's the important element of the kick? And this leads to style.
Yes.
Because suddenly you have actually the bass drum is so clicky. Let's do a double kick with like 32s and all that. Technology and art have always been intertwined.
Yes.
So technology leads to new forms of art, and this is what we're starting to see here in the Dolby Atmos sphere.
Now we have more headroom. So we might even see new genres accidentally emerge because of the change in the technology.
Absolutely. I experiment a lot with ambient music, which you get the ultimate immersive experience with. You can just have pads and all that. And since I'm essentially a pop producer, I'm implementing that knowledge and that experience into my pop production, even unconsciously. I'm very much for the pushing of this technology from an artistic perspective. I don't care about the labels, the major labels making more money. They have enough.
Yeah.
But as an artist, as a creator, as a mixer, as someone who creates new technology, I'm fascinated by this and would like to see where it leads us in the next decade, because it will catch on. It's just a matter of time. There's a pushback at the moment, but it will catch on. And we are working on new and better technologies for emulating immersive sound on binaural headphones. And it will just get better and better, and you'll have more positive experience. At the moment, you have, like I said, 30 or 40% of the experience when you listen to surround stuff on headphones. And there's an element of wishful thinking. You kind of have to want to hear the immersive or to get the immersive experience. So if you have something kind of coming from the back and above and all that, if you say, oh no, it's just some stereo stuff getting filtered and delayed, so you can treat it like that. But if you want to hear it, you can.
Yep.
It's a little bit abstract, and that's not what you want from a kind of high street commercial format. So we need to improve the technology more and more. But since there's money in this industry now, then it's just a matter of time.
If people want to get stuck in and work in Dolby Atmos, people who don't, because we're here in Yoad studio here at Nevo Sound, and this is the result of many years of work, isn't it? And a lot of success and a lot of investment. And we have this great Neve desk here. We've got this Dolby rig. We've got more great synths and great outboard gear than you could shake a stick at. And so I won't do that. But if someone's only got a laptop, how do they get started working in Dolby Atmos?
I would say get something like Waves NX. This is a good starting point, and try to experiment with this format. And I would say go to Dolby Atmos equipped studio setup and check your mixes.
Okay.
Go back and forth. This is really important. This is something that I do all the time, and every Dolby Atmos mixer does all the time, is to check how it translates to binaural. 99.9% of humanity consume music on headphones. If you don't want to be left behind as a musician, as a producer, as a mixer, you have to start looking at this format, because it's not going to go away.
That seems like a good kind of place to cut off. Is there any final thoughts you've got for us just about where we're going and what you're excited about? Anything you've listened to in Dolby that you feel like is the best use of that format?
many of the established artists release really good Atmos mixes. So I would say that this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
On Apple Music, if you don't have the surround setup of speakers, you can get some sound bars which will give you some of the experience for cheap. You can get very small satellite speakers, even 5.1. Just try to immerse yourself in immersive sound.
Okay, I like that as a sign-off point. So, Yoad, Nevo, thank you for your time.